Okay, so in this part, as promised in the previous part, if you've watched that, we are going to look at the oscillator section. So basically, I'm going to focus on this section here. I've got this connected up as previously to a MIDI controller. I'm using the Akai MPK Mini, so that is giving me the keyboard, so I'm playing the keyboard there now, and I've also got some control over some of the parameters. You can see this bit moving here, which I'm actually controlling with a dial on a Korg Nano control. If I can remember which each one of those do, that's that one. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So we're going to zoom in. So remember, just click up here, or you can double click sort of in a blank space here to get to the, bring it up a little bit closer to the screen so we can see what we're looking at. So let's say we're going to concentrate on this section here in this video. One thing I forgot to mention actually in the introduction thing is one thing which I think is great on this app is it will work on any version of an iPad. I've still got the original iPad 1, which I think doesn't go beyond iOS 4 or something ridiculous like that, and it still works exactly the same as this one. I'm running this one off an iPad Air, which is bang up to date on whatever the current iOS is. So if you've got a cheap old iPad 1 lying around that you're not sure what to use for, then you could just have it as a dedicated iMS20 controller, which is very cool and very useful. So thank you, Korg, for that. And that sticks one to Apple as well, because every time they upgrade something, you've got to buy new products, and you don't have to on this. So there we go. Right, so oscillators. Okay, we've got two oscillators. So let's just go quickly through the waveforms. I've got a very, very basic patch. Let's just going to do. I'm just going to change over here the envelope. So we've basically just got a note on, note off. Okay, we've not. Hold on, I've got some delay from somewhere. Just give me 1 sec. Where's that coming from? I must have an effect turned on. I have, just there. So let's turn that off. Okay, so we're just listening to the basic sound. Right, there's no effects, nothing. So we've got oscillator-wise on oscillator 1, we start off with a triangle. We've then got a sawtooth, which is obviously a bit brighter and a bit buzzier. We've got a pulse width, and we've got pulse width modulation down here, which I've not got mapped to a controller, I don't think, at the moment. So I'm going to do that off the iPad. So, yeah, usual pulse width modulation kind of thing. Okay, so we can go right up to nothing. That's at about 50%. Okay, so you can get some nice kind of, we could obviously control that with an envelope or something, which we'll look at in later sessions. And then we've got noise. Obviously great for drum sounds. So that's oscillator 1. Let's just turn that back around to the sawtooth. Then down here, I say we've just looked at this. Obviously, we've got the pulse width modulation. Here we've got scale, which goes from 32 feet to 4 feet, which I've got mapped to this. Yep. Okay, so we've got a nice range on the oscillator there. So we've got the mixer section here. Obviously, this is the level of oscillator 1, which I'm going to now turn down, and we're going to bring up oscillator 2, which is this one here. So we're just listening to oscillator 2. Few slight differences on oscillator 2 to oscillator 1. We start off with, we've not got a triangle wave on here, we've just got a sawtooth. We've got a square. I might have called this a pulse width here, which I guess is the same thing, but remember it's a square wave, and we've got pulse width modulation on the square, I can't remember. But anyway, we've got square wave, we've got no pulse width modulation on this, but we've got two settings. We've got kind of like it full shape there, and then we've got it here, which I think is roughly about 50%. And then we've got ring modulation, which is very nice if you mix that in with oscillator 1. Let's just give you an example of that. I can leave it on there, we'll bring the mix up of oscillator 1. Okay, so And obviously you can mix any of the two oscillators together. So I've got, we could have a bit of, let me see. So I have a bit of square and triangle. Okay, so obviously you've got loads of different possibilities there. Here we've got pitch, which I realise I've just taken all the way down. So we can go, basically we've got a range from -12 to +12 semitones, which is an octave. So at normal pitch there, and this works quite well actually if we have the ring modulation. And just sort of detune Oscillator 2 a little bit. So there's in tune, and then okay, which is nice. And we've got the scale as well, which I have no clue what I've got this one mapped to. I can't remember, so I'm going to do this off the iPad. So the scales for Oscillator 2 goes from 16 feet to 2 feet, so it's different to Oscillator 1. Doesn't go quite as low, but it goes higher. Let's just get rid of Oscillator 1 for now. Let's turn that down. And let's just go on Sawtooth for this. Okay, so again, we've got a nice range on the scale for that oscillator. The mixer, obviously, we've looked at, pretty straightforward, pretty self-explanatory. You've got VCO 1 and VCO 2 levels, so you can mix them as to how you want them. Master Tune is, I mean, I've never ever used this on this app. I'm guessing that is there because they've kind of basically tried to recreate this like the hardware synth, obviously, which was an analog synth. And analog synths, you do need to tune a little bit sometimes. So I'm guessing that's why that is there. I've never used it, but obviously you can detune the whole thing a little bit if you wish, or if you need to tune this to something else, you've got an overall master tune section here. And then we've got portamento, which is basically like glide. So let's just. So that's on 0. If I turn it all the way to the top. Okay, as I go between notes, let's just bring the keyboard up so you can see me changing. Okay, so it's going to glide down to a note if we go up. Okay, it's going to kind of glide up to that note. Let's just move this up so we can see it. So if we go about halfway on the portamento time. Oh, that's asking me if I want to subscribe. No thanks. Okay, let's turn that up a little bit more. Okay, so that's a nice way, just using the portamento to get that slide between the different notes. Let's turn it back down to 0. And then we've got the last section on here is the frequency modulation. Which is basically going to modulate the pitch. So it's kind of like a hardwired LFO, and that's kind of hardwired to the modulation generator over here. So the top dial, you can see down the bottom here, it says mg/t.ext. Ignore the t.ext thing at the moment. That's going to come into play when we go into the patch bay later on. So when we've not got anything patched, basically the top dial is hardwired to the modulation generator. And the bottom dial, we've got EG1/X. So again, X is when we've got something going off in the patch bay. So unless we've patched anything, it's hardwired to envelope generator 1. So if we bring up a bit of the frequency modulation, okay, you can hear the pitch going up and down on that, and that is going to be controlled by the modulation generator here, which is basically an LFO, call it a modulation generator. So this is the frequency, that's kind of like the speed of how fast that's going to modulate it. Okay, and the higher we turn this up, the higher the difference between the low pitch and the high pitch modulation will go, as follows. Okay, so low down you can get like a little tremolo effect, and then if you want to go completely crazy, it goes like that, obviously. Okay, and we can change the shape of the LFO, for want of a better description, modulation generator, with the waveform here. Okay, so that's going to take it to a kind of a rising sawtooth. Okay, and down here it's kind of like a falling sawtooth, and then in the middle it's kind of like a square. So you can kind of go between each of those. Let's turn that down, and then we've got here. This is going to be controlled by the envelope generator. So if we turn the attack time up on envelope generator 1 and dial some of this in, okay, it's going to. What it does is it kind of starts with a lower note, depending on where this is positioned, and then kind of glides in to the note that you press. So I'm pressing C at the moment. So, okay, now if I take that all the way up, it's going to start really low, and then take it up to the pitch of the note I've played, dependent on how fast we got the attack time. So slow attack time, you can hear that's coming straight up. If we go for a longer attack, okay, it's going to take a long time to get in there. Release time will, what I need to do for this, because the release time will then let the note go back down again. Let's just take this down a little bit so it's not quite so crazy. Now if I do it as play it as it's set at the moment, and then let my finger go here, not going to do anything because we've not got any release time on the amp envelope, which is envelope generator 2. So if we dial in a little bit of release, and then now when I let my finger go, okay, you can hear it's going back down. Oh, let's get rid of that. You can hear it's going back down to the note it originally started on. So you can get a nice rise fall kind of thing on that, again dependent on the release time that we've got here. So again, you've got a lot of options and possibilities with that. It's going to get rid of that release time. We've got a delay time, so this is how long it will take for this envelope generator to kick in after we've pressed play, after we've pressed the key. So if we turn that up fairly high, what you'll get is the normal note. Okay, and then it will start. So it's basically, it sort of bypasses the envelope for a period of time, dependent on where this is set, and then it will kick in. Okay, so what happens is it starts on the note dependent on where this is. So if I turn this all the way down, okay, so that's the note I'm pressing, which is a C. If I turn this up, it will pitch that down to start with, and then after the delay time here, it will then rise up to the note I've played, dependent on the attack time here, which hopefully makes sense. And I'm guessing that is in milliseconds, I think, that amount there. I think that goes up to... It might even be seconds, actually, because that's... I think that's, yeah, I think that's, it's not milliseconds, it's seconds, because that was about 10 seconds we're counting there. So, if, like, that's going to be milliseconds down here. I think, I'm not sure, I may be wrong, but anyway, it kind of delays the envelope kicking in. Okay, and that envelope, we can route these envelopes to different places, but as it stands at the moment, with nothing patched in different places, it is hardwired to these two dials here, as we mentioned previously. So that's the oscillator section. And obviously we've covered a little bit as well on the modulation generator section on envelope generator 1, but we'll have a look at the envelopes in more detail in later videos. So that's it for this video. Hopefully that was of some use to you. So please like, subscribe. Any comments, please put them in the box below. If you've got any questions or suggestions for future videos, again, I'd be happy to take some of those on board. And I do always try and respond to any questions as well and help people out as much as possible. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next part where we will have a look at the filter section.